Archaeologists have discovered a huge ancient city hidden underground in Mexico, which may give a better understanding of the Maya civilization.
The most mysterious monuments in human history.
Everybody's heard about the Aztecs. Everybody's heard about the Maya.
Carved from basalt and weighing up to 50 tons.
With these stone giants, it really is a question as to why they chose these specific types of rock.
The Olmec Heads have stood in silence for over 2,000 years. No one truly knows how they were made, why they were placed where they were, or what exact purpose they served.
This whole construction had several construction episodes and was built directly on the bedrock.
Now, for the first time, artificial intelligence has scanned several of these ancient heads with unmatched precision.
A curious mystery that is not unconnected to the genetic mystery.
What they found was completely unexpected. Patterns that do not fit any known tool, hidden structures inside the stone, and details that raise more questions than answers. The scans just deepened the mystery. What they just found suggests that something about their origin should have never existed. The Olmec mystery. The Olmec civilization appeared in what is now southern Mexico more than 3,000 years ago. They occupied the Gulf Coast region, especially areas that are now part of Veracruz and Tabasco. The first evidence of their complex society dates to around 1,500 years before the Common Era. This civilization built ceremonial centers, used writing symbols, and left behind monumental art. Among their most iconic remains are the colossal heads. These are stone sculptures carved from basalt, a volcanic rock that is heavy and extremely hard.
Colossal head, carved from a single boulder of volcanic basalt rock.
17 heads have been found so far. Each one shows the face of a human male with distinct features. Their expressions are calm, their eyes narrow, and most of them wear what appear to be helmets. These heads are not small. The tallest stands over 3 meters high. The heaviest weighs more than 50 tons. Each one was carved from a single block of basalt. These blocks were quarried from a mountain range called the Sierra de los Tuxtlas. That region is more than 90 kilometers from the Olmec ceremonial centers. There were no beasts of burden in Mesoamerica at that time. The Olmecs had no wheels, no carts, and no metal tools. Despite this, they moved those stones. Then they carved them with only stone tools. Modern archaeology cannot fully explain how this was done. Several theories have been offered. One suggests they moved the stones with rafts along rivers. Another proposes that hundreds of people dragged the blocks using ropes and logs. But there is no physical evidence of these systems. The carving is another unexplained feature. Basalt is one of the hardest natural materials. Chiseling it without metal would have required thousands of hours. Yet the heads are not crude. The facial features are clean. The symmetry in the eyes, ears, and mouths is consistent. The facial features suggest individual identities. Many researchers believe they represent rulers. Others think they may have served as guardians or religious icons. There is no clear answer. The heads are not the only large-scale work of the Olmecs. They also built massive earthen platforms, thrones carved from stone, and altars decorated with mythological scenes. They had a system of symbols that may be early writing. They made figurines from jade and ceramics with refined artistic quality. Yet for all their achievements, no one knows what happened to them. The civilization declined around 400 years before the Common Era. Later groups, including the Maya and the Aztec, built on Olmec ideas, but the people themselves disappeared. Much of what is known about the Olmecs comes from what they left behind and what is buried beneath the ground.
These were the vestiges of an entire civilization. A civilization that today takes its place among the very oldest found anywhere in the world.
The heads remain the most famous and most puzzling evidence of their skill. The scale, the detail, and the effort required to make them do not match what is expected of a pre-metal, pre-wheel society. A few of the heads show signs of reuse. Carving marks suggest that some may have started as other structures, like thrones or altars, before being reshaped into heads. This points to an even older phase of monument building that has not been identified. One head found at a site called La Cobata appears unfinished. Its face is rough, the carving incomplete.
What they uncovered was unlike anything they'd seen before. A single colossal stone head buried deep in the ground.
This has raised more questions than answers. Why was the work stopped? Until recently, archaeologists relied on surface studies, basic excavation, and visual inspection to analyze the heads. But these methods could only go so far. The sheer size and weight of the sculptures limited how deeply they could be examined. That changed when researchers decided to use artificial intelligence tools to perform high-resolution scans of several heads. These scans used structured light, laser mapping, and density modeling to capture what the human eye and traditional tools could not. The technology allowed for internal imaging, surface analysis at a microscopic level, and comparison across multiple heads. At first, the scans seemed to confirm what was already known, until the software began flagging inconsistencies. There were marks on the inner layers of the stone that did not match stone tool abrasions. There were shifts in internal density that did not align with natural basalt formations. And, in at least one case, the scans showed what appeared to be geometric features beneath the surface that had never been detected before. These were not part of the known carving.
You can see these gorgeous details, like the line that's drawn around the lips, just giving that extra sense of dimension and definition.
They were too symmetrical, too linear, and too deep. They were invisible without the scan. The results were unexpected, and they raised questions that the current archaeological model could not answer. It is not clear yet what these findings mean. The anomalies are being reviewed, but what is already clear is that the heads are not simple monuments. What AI was supposed to find. The decision to scan the Olmec heads came from a need to document them with greater accuracy.
In Veracruz State in Mexico, we're just on the trail of the Olmec. Behind me, you can see one of the great Olmec heads.
These sculptures are vulnerable to erosion, vandalism, and the slow damage of weathering. Traditional methods such as photographs and plaster casts could not capture the full geometry or surface condition. So researchers turned to a combination of structured light scanning, laser surface mapping, and artificial intelligence-based modeling. The goal was simple: create the most accurate digital record possible of several heads. This would allow for conservation planning, virtual restoration, and deeper study of tool marks, weathering, and structural changes over time. Nothing in the original plan involved searching for anomalies. The AI tools were there to enhance precision, not rewrite history. Teams used portable structured light scanners capable of mapping surface features at sub-millimeter resolution. Once the data was collected, it was passed through a trained AI pipeline. The algorithm had been taught to distinguish between known carving marks, natural damage, erosion patterns, and environmental effects. The idea was to automatically flag any areas where the surface deviated from what was expected. When the AI system performed deeper analysis, it began generating alerts. One model flagged a repeated line pattern on the side of a head. These were extremely fine parallel striations, visible only in the three-dimensional mesh. They ran across the side of the jaw, underneath a decorative element. The markings did not match any known tool marks from Mesoamerica. They resembled abrasion scoring seen in modern machining, although that comparison remains uncertain. No Olmec tools based on archaeological evidence could have produced such fine control. The marks were too shallow, too consistent, and too protected from natural wear to be accidental. Another scan revealed a shallow recess near the base of one of the heads. It was circular and cleanly defined. This had never been documented before because it sat underneath the sculpture's buried portion. When the model reconstructed the full object, the shape became clear. It appeared to be a socket-like depression, less than 5 centimeters deep. The reason for its presence is unknown. No similar features have been reported in other Mesoamerican sculptures. In a third scan, the AI system detected internal inconsistencies in material density. The head had a small but distinct region inside the crown where the stone's density dropped below normal basalt levels. The volume was irregular but enclosed. This could be a natural void. Basalt can contain bubbles or gaps formed during volcanic cooling, but the shape was more linear than spherical. It resembled a channel or shaft, though the scan was not powerful enough to penetrate fully. To check for scanning errors, the team repeated the analysis using a different model and software. The same anomalies appeared. They were features of the physical object, missed for decades. As a control, the team scanned a head known to be unfinished, the one at La Cobata. It showed expected tool marks, rough edges, and no anomalies. This confirmed that the AI was not overfitting or hallucinating patterns. The system worked as designed. The team also used photogrammetry to check for subtle surface reliefs. By comparing lighting angles and microshadows, they found what might be shallow carved lines behind the ears of one sculpture. These lines formed a grid-like pattern, mostly invisible to the naked eye. The AI flagged this as statistically unlikely to be random. Another unexpected pattern came from the symmetry analysis. The AI system measured each half of a face to check alignment. Most showed natural variation, but one head had near-perfect bilateral symmetry in its mouth and eyes, more precise than typical hand carving. This did not prove machine use, but it suggested a level of planning or measurement not previously documented in Olmec works. What makes this significant is not one isolated detail. It is the pattern. Multiple anomalies across separate heads. This suggests that the Olmec heads are more than carved portraits. They may contain architectural design, hidden structures, or reused stone. The scans also open new possibilities for how the Olmec worked. If some heads were modified over time, that means their history is layered. Some features could date to different periods. This would reshape how we date and classify them. The next phase will require deeper scans, chemical analysis, and comparative studies. The heads are not just artifacts, they are data structures. And only now are we learning how to read them. Impossible marks, buried geometry. The more researchers scanned the Olmec heads, the less consistent the data became.
San Lorenzo also had a very enormous artificial plateau. In this image, you see that this very straight line.
It was no longer just a question of external features. Something deeper was beginning to emerge. Elements that could not be explained by standard carving, typical weathering, or known construction methods from that period. One of the clearest examples came from a head located at the San Lorenzo site. When the AI system enhanced the scan's internal imaging using adjusted light reflection algorithms, it detected a pattern that should not have been possible. Along the inner curve of the neck, a series of symmetrical indentations ran vertically. Each one was evenly spaced. Each had the same arc shape. The AI model could not match the pattern with any natural fracture sequence or erosion process. The hypothesis formed was simple. The indentations could represent either an inner reinforcement system or a pre-cut structure that guided the carving. But no known Mesoamerican technique matches this kind of internal shaping, especially not in basalt. This type of stone does not lend itself to internal design work. It is too hard. It cracks under stress. Creating features inside the rock without compromising the outer surface would require an understanding of stress distribution well beyond any known tools from that era. Another anomaly came from the material composition. A separate scan using portable X-ray fluorescence revealed irregularities in mineral content on the outer layer of one head. Specifically, traces of hematite and magnetite were found in a polished strip that extended across the forehead. These minerals are not unusual in Mesoamerican pigments, but in this case, they were not surface applied. The elemental signature was embedded in the top layer of the basalt, suggesting they were introduced during carving, not painted afterward. The distribution of these minerals formed a band that was slightly raised. It did not appear to be decorative. It did not follow the contours of the headdress or any visible ornamentation. It cut across features. Under AI-enhanced scans, the surface had fewer microfractures than adjacent areas. The system flagged this section as anomalous. What makes this detail important is its location and consistency. Other heads showed no such feature. Only this one and only in that band. The theory that it was natural variation in the stone was ruled out after control samples from the same quarry showed no similar patterns. In a third case, a scan from the back of one head revealed what appeared to be a faint recessed spiral. The depth of the groove was less than half a millimeter, but it ran continuously for almost 1 meter in length. The spiral had 5 full turns, expanding outward from a central point near the crown. No Olmec artwork previously studied includes such a pattern. Spirals are present in other Mesoamerican art, often symbolizing water, wind, or time. But their appearance on a head, and on a non-visible section, is unprecedented. Some researchers believe that at least one of the heads was carved in multiple stages, using different types of tools. This observation supports the theory that the heads might have been recycled. Some could have started as thrones or monuments, then reworked into heads. This would explain certain inconsistencies in geometry and tool finish, but it does not explain why the inner marks or hidden spirals exist. If they were left over from previous forms, they should show signs of partial erasure. Instead, they appear intentional, preserved. The basalt used in this sculpture had unusual grain structures. When compared to control samples from the known quarry region, the match was incomplete. Most of the basalt in Olmec Heads comes from the Tuxtlas range. This sample had higher levels of feldspar and slightly different magnetic properties. This suggests that either the source was a different part of the range, not previously mapped, or the stone came from farther away. What ties all of these anomalies together is their invisibility to the naked eye. No archaeologist studying these heads by sight could have spotted them. Only when AI-based scanning systems reconstructed their form with sub-millimeter detail did these features appear. The scans reveal a structure and complexity in the heads that was not previously documented. The implication is that either the Olmecs had more advanced techniques than we have given them credit for, or the heads have a more complicated history than previously assumed, perhaps both. What the AI scan has shown is not a supernatural artifact. It shows a sculpture possibly designed for something other than public display, and the more we scan, the more these buried designs continue to appear. More than monuments. The original purpose of the Olmec heads has always been uncertain. Most experts believe they were carved to represent rulers or elites, possibly to mark territory or commemorate political power. This is based on the head's unique facial features, elaborate headdresses, and their placement in central areas of known Olmec sites. But the new AI scans, along with the anomalies they revealed, suggest a more complicated role. These heads may have served a second function, one that goes beyond public symbolism. At La Venta, 4 heads were discovered, buried in a large ceremonial platform. That kind of treatment does not fit with the idea of public display. Instead, it suggests a kind of burial, a sealing or hiding of something once active or sacred. The choice to bury them may have been intentional, not accidental. They were not discarded. They were put away. Some of the heads show signs of defacement. Facial features were flattened or features chipped away. These changes were deliberate. One theory is that these heads were damaged during political change. When a ruler fell out of power, his image was defaced. But another possibility is that the heads were part of a cycle, created, displayed, buried, and perhaps even reused. If this is true, then they were not just statues. They were ritual tools, involved in events that were repeated over generations. AI analysis also revealed symmetry patterns that suggest mathematical planning. One head had perfect alignment between the eyes, nose, and mouth, down to sub-millimeter scale. This level of precision is rare in freehand carving. It implies some kind of layout system. A few researchers believe this could point to modular carving methods or templates used to guide sculptors. That means the heads were not just art. They were measured, calculated, and executed with architectural care. That pattern is also reflected in the head's orientation. At least 5 of them face in cardinal directions: north, south, east, or west. This is common in Mesoamerican sacred planning. Temples, ball courts, and plazas were often aligned with solar or astronomical markers. If the heads were part of a larger spatial design, then they may have served a cosmological role, not just to show who ruled, but to connect the earthly and celestial order. One of the most unusual findings from the scans was the detection of recessed symbols on the back of a head at Tres Zapotes. The symbol was only a few centimeters wide, barely visible even under raking light. It looked like a cross inside a circle, not found in other Olmec iconography. No one knows its meaning. Some suggest it could be a directional marker. Others think it may have been part of a system used to align the head with other objects in space. Either way, it does not seem decorative. It was placed in a hidden location, not meant to be seen casually. There is also growing interest in the idea that the heads were part of a memory system. In some early societies, monuments were used to store information. Position, scale, shape, and order could carry encoded meaning. If the heads were laid out across ceremonial grounds according to a specific geometry, they could have served as a kind of spatial archive. This would make them part of a living knowledge system, not static memorials. The theory gains weight when comparing the heads to other Olmec structures. Several platforms and mounds at San Lorenzo and La Venta follow proportional patterns. Some are aligned with river paths. Others mirror solar angles at key points in the year. The heads fit into these alignments even when buried. That suggests the planning behind their placement was not random. Another point that supports multiple functions is the evidence of head recycling. At least 3 heads show signs of being recarved from older monuments. Tool marks that cross at odd angles, surface polishing that overlaps earlier edges, and unfinished facial contours all point to reuse. One head has what appears to be a throne seat carved into the back, now barely visible due to surface erosion. This feature would not exist if the block had been shaped only once. If the heads were recycled, that means they were not sacred in a permanent way. They could be transformed, reshaped, and repurposed. That flexibility suggests they served a role that changed with time, tied to social cycles, power shifts, or ceremonial needs. This again pushes against the idea of them as static monuments. They were active objects, possibly used across multiple generations. None of these interpretations can be confirmed with full certainty, but the scans revealed features that the public, and even experts, had missed for decades. If the Olmec heads were only meant to be portraits, their construction, placement, and reworking do not follow expected patterns. Their size, materials, and orientations match other sacred structures more than decorative art. Their surfaces contain details too fine for casual display. Their locations match ritual geometry, not random spacing. Whether ceremonial, astronomical, mnemonic, or architectural, the heads do not stand alone. They are connected to the land, to the stars, and to each other. They may not have been built to be seen. They may have been built to hold. And the data can't be unseen. The purpose of technology is not just to observe, it is to reveal. In the case of the Olmec heads, artificial intelligence did not find an answer. It found something else. It uncovered a pattern of mismatched details, inconsistencies, and hidden structures that suggest a deeper truth, one that has remained buried, not only in the soil, but in the assumptions behind centuries of study. From the beginning, these sculptures defied expectations. Their weight, their scale, and the skill used to create them placed them far beyond what most would assume of a culture with no metal tools, no wheels, and no written records. But archaeology accepted the mystery as a sign of creative ingenuity. The heads were seen as bold examples of early art. Powerful, yes, but simple in meaning. The new scans have changed that. What the data shows is not a single anomaly, it is a series of them. In nearly every head scanned, some detail did not match the expected profile. It might be a thin groove buried in the stone. It might be a void inside the structure. It might be a line of mineral concentration that did not belong. Each anomaly on its own is not enough to rewrite history, but taken together, they form a message. That message is simple. The current model is incomplete. The most surprising discovery was not on the surface, it was within. A model trained to simulate internal density based on laser reflection and surface geometry revealed inconsistencies in 2 of the heads. One had a hollow segment close to the center, long and narrow like a hidden shaft. The other had layers of material that did not match known basalt patterns. In both cases, traditional explanations failed. These were not random air pockets. They were too symmetrical, too isolated. Some researchers suggest that these features are natural. Basalt can crack during cooling. It can form pockets, bubbles, or stress lines. But none of those forms match the layout of the voids detected here. One scan showed a clean break, a flat internal surface aligned with the external base. This is not how natural voids form. It looks cut, controlled, measured. When the results were published in a peer-reviewed archaeology journal, the academic response was cautious. The authors did not claim anything supernatural. They did not suggest lost civilizations or advanced machines. They reported the data. They described the process, and they admitted the limits of their interpretations. What followed was a wave of curiosity. More teams began requesting access to the AI models. Funding applications were submitted for further scans, and slowly, more anomalies began to emerge. One team discovered what appears to be an etched line under the jawline of a San Lorenzo head. Another found a polished depression hidden beneath the chin of a La Venta sculpture. None of these details were visible to the naked eye. None of them had been noted before. Even more troubling were the tool mark analyses. In at least one head, the AI flagged patterns that matched no known carving technique. The surface bore signs of grinding, not pecking, not chiseling. Grinding requires abrasion tools and fine pressure control. The Olmecs did use abrasives on jade, but to do the same on basalt at such scale would require a supply of tools and materials not currently found at any Olmec site. The AI also detected symmetry too precise to be explained by hand carving alone. One head's facial axis deviated less than 2 millimeters across the full width, from ear to ear. For context, this is closer to architectural tolerance than typical sculpture. It is unlikely the human eye alone could maintain this consistency. The spiral detected in one head's recessed back remains unexplained. Its curves followed a mathematical arc, not random, not decorative. A deliberate pattern, hidden on a surface not meant to be seen. Together, these details suggest that the heads were more than visual. They may have encoded something, not writing in the modern sense, but form-based data, the way lines and shapes carry meaning in architecture, in ritual layout, in spatial memory systems. In many early cultures, knowledge was not written. It was built, in the shape of roads, in the placement of stones, in the silent language of geometry. This raises the possibility that the heads are part of a larger system, a system we have only begun to map. Their orientation, their internal structure, their unseen features, all point to layers of design, layers not required for public viewing but for function. What that function was remains unclear. It could be ceremonial, it could be symbolic, it could be practical, but it was not random. The use of artificial intelligence here does not mean the past is unknowable without machines. It means that our assumptions must evolve. The heads have always been silent, but now, under light and lens and software, they are speaking. They tell us that ancient craftsmanship included choices we did not expect, that sculpture could serve multiple roles, seen and unseen. That form could carry knowledge long after the makers were gone. The Olmec civilization disappeared more than 2,000 years ago. Their language, their records, and much of their daily life have vanished. What remains are the structures they left behind. The heads are the most powerful of those. Now they are revealing a second layer, not because they changed, but because we finally looked closer. The anomalies are real. The data is clear. Something is off. There are features that do not belong in the current timeline, marks that suggest precision beyond what we have found in their tools, materials that imply planning beyond what we assumed, patterns that echo logic, not accident. None of this proves anything impossible, but it shows that something we once thought we understood may be far more complex. The story is not over. It is just beginning. These scans are now public. The models are being refined. The next step is to re-examine not only the heads, but the land around them. The platforms, the buried plazas, the forgotten foundations. What else is sealed beneath stone? What else have we misread? The heads were never just monuments. They were never just art. They were pieces of a system, and now that system is beginning to show itself. What we do with that knowledge will decide what we find next.